You're Free to Go is sponsored by Milburn Men's Clothing, where top athletes shop for sharp, tailored style. And whether Mark and I are in the studio or the courtroom, Milburn dresses us for success. Mention YFTG and get 10% off at Milburn Men's Clothing, which has been providing the finest in men's clothing and suits since 1946. Call 651-645-2922 or visit www.milburn.com. Welcome back, everybody, to your favorite podcast, You're Free to Go. I'm here in the studio in Boca Raton, Florida, our favorite studio, Podcast Junkies, with our engineer, Ben. How's everything going today, Ben?
Woo-woo! We're having a great day.
All
It's
right.
good to have you guys back in studio.
Yeah, well, Mark's still in LA, but he'll be back soon. I think next week or so he'll be here with us. So, Mark, you good out there in LA in the beautiful weather?
Everything's great out here, and I'm anxious to get back. But the beauty of the podcast is that we can do it remote.
Right. Well, I know you plan to be here, but you have a big case going on out there of an extradition
Right.
to a foreign country.
Right, to
You're tied-
Germany. So in the meantime, we're fighting that, and but the show must go on, as they say, right?
Well, you're in Hollywood out there in LA, so yeah, that's
Right.
very apropos.
The
Well,
two words: the show must go on, and I'll always take a meeting. And then there's the Hollywood slow no, which is, I want to do it, love it.
but let's talk about it next week.
You bet.
Well, our fans today are in for a huge, huge treat. We have a guest who happens to be one of my best friends and truly an extraordinary criminal defense attorney. He's out of the New York, New Jersey area, and his name is Andy Blair. I'll introduce him in a second. Again, one of my greatest friends. We're golf buddies. We're family friends, and I know that his kids, he knows mine. Our wives are friends, so it's really special for me to have Andy in the studio today. And he has a similar background to the background that Mark and I have. He's been practicing for 35 years, literally handled every type of criminal case there is, every case you can imagine in criminal law he's handled. And in my opinion, knowing Andy the way I do, what makes him so successful is that he combines brilliance with experience and an unwavering commitment and genuine passion for defending people accused of a crime. I think, there are a lot of smart lawyers out there, but when you combine that with Andy's genuine passion to fight the fight and to protect people who have been accused of a crime, that really sets him apart, I believe. And I know that's going to come through loud and clear to our listeners today when they'll hear how committed he is over the years to fighting for his clients' freedom. So it's a very special episode for me, and I've been wanting Andy on the show since Mark and I first launched. So it's time that he's here, and I'm ready to say, let's do it, Andy. Welcome on board, and look forward to you sharing your story with our, not only stories about a case or some of your many, many great cases, also starting with a little bit of your background, how you got into criminal law, and I'm just really excited to have you here. So thanks for being here.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, Mark. Nice to meet you also. And
Nice to meet you.
it's great to be here in this kind of format.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for 35 years. When I went to law school, I thought I wanted to be U.S. attorney.
Uh-huh.
I thought I was going to be doing the opposite thing than what I ended up doing. But my grandfather was a New Jersey Supreme Court justice, and he kind of introduced me to a gentleman that was a big-time criminal defense attorney in New Jersey when I was coming out of law school studying for the bar. We hit it off great, and to me, all of a sudden, things started to click, taking care of people, fighting for their rights, police misconduct, and all this kind of thing, guys getting arrested unjustly, and it all just kind of fell into place with me right away. So what I thought I wanted to do was the opposite of what I ended up doing right from the very beginning.
Yeah, well, I started on the opposite side. I started as a prosecutor, and it was a great transition for me to then go into criminal defense. But I love how you can pinpoint a moment in your life through your grandfather, the judge, introducing you to someone, and that moment is what kind of set you off on this great direction of a really successful career in criminal defense. Like, I look at it, for me, when I went into private practice, one of my first cases was with the great criminal defense lawyer, Roy Black. And I can pinpoint that set me on this trajectory of thankfully, I'm very grateful for a great career path in criminal defense. So it's cool to know you had a similar experience through your grandfather. I love that.
Yes, and it was also seeing as a young criminal defense attorney how difficult it is for defendants to defend themselves with the power of the government, especially the federal government. And that to me just totally turned me in the opposite direction and launched me into, I started working for a sole practitioner right out of law school. So because he was a sole practitioner and very busy, criminal defense attorney, I got a lot of responsibility in the private world, which is unusual because usually in the defense world, you start in the public defender's office or something like that, and it takes a while to really get going and try cases, unless you're with the public defender's office. And I was thrown right into the serious world right from the get-go.
Which is the best way to learn, right? Right into the frying pan.
It was great.
Yeah. Share with our fans, I know you've talked to me a little bit about that lawyer you worked for. He sounded like a wild, like over-the-top lawyer, right?
He was very well-known criminal defense attorney. His name was Miles Feinstein, and he was renowned throughout the state of New Jersey and New York for trying heavy criminal cases. And what amazed me about him is he was known as being one of the best cross-examiners, and he never took a note, which is very hard to do and very unusual. Mm-hmm. And seeing him never write down, never what he was going to do, cross-examining questions, never writing down what the witnesses were saying was just amazing to me from a memory standpoint that he was able to do that. Right. And he tried all kinds of cases, had all kinds of clients come in the door, and as a result, I got his overflow right out of law school, right. Which was amazing for somebody with very little experience.
Yeah. I'm wondering if Marc, who started his career as a DA in Brooklyn, right? Marc, was it Brooklyn DA?
Yes.
Do you remember that attorney? Maybe you had cases against him.
I remember hearing the name. I'm a little older. I've been practicing 50 years. So I started in the DA's office in 75. So I do remember the name. I never came across the gentleman. But of course, when you're in the DA's office, you hear about a lot of great attorneys out there who are potential opponents. So I do remember hearing his name.
Yeah. Great. Better than law school, right? When you get in a situation like that, it really is better than, and we can't learn any of that in law school.
Law school does not prepare you for anything like the first day in a real criminal defense attorney's office.
That is the truth. I mean, I taught law school in a span over 20 years, and I mean, I'm the first to admit law school does not prepare you to be a lawyer. It prepares you to take the bar exam at best. Mm-hmm. But you had an unusual and a wonderful experience, because having a mentor is so important. And, you know, when you're in a DA's office or you're in a public defender's office, there may be people who are a little bit more experienced than you, but generally not at the level of like what Miles was. So, you know, that was a wonderful opportunity for you.
He was on a 2-year federal case right when I went into his office.
Oh, my God.
And so he was stuck in New Jersey federal court in Nurik for 2 years.
Was that the famous case that with all the mob guys?
Yeah, it was 30 defendants, all of which got acquitted.
Oh. Right, and there's a movie. There's a movie with Vin Diesel called, what's the name? Something like I'm Not Guilty or something like that, where they brought some of the defendants into court on hospital beds or in wheelchairs. I don't know.
It was a very unusual situation, and the reason why I think they got acquitted.
Find Me Guilty is the name. Yeah,
right. Everybody was on bail, and in the morning for 2 years, they would see each other. The defendants and the jury would see each other in the hallway. Coffee was being exchanged. Weird things were going on, you know. And after 2 years, they got to become a little familiar with each other with limited contact, obviously. Right. And it got to the point where I think that this jury just didn't want to convict anybody. And the entire group of 30, I think it was, were acquitted.
Wow. That's definitely unprecedented.
And the assistant U.S. attorney who handled the case was totally demoralized. I know that because I had a trial with him not too long afterwards. And
a very unusual experience right after that trial is there was a celebration party up at my boss's house up in Woodstock, New York. And so 30 guys, family guys we'll call them, came up there. And it turns out they all brought their guns because it was on like a 30-acre property. Uh-huh. And at some point in time, I'm a brand new attorney, and these guys were like, "Oh, can you go set up some targets for us to shoot at?"
Oh my God.
So at one point in time, I go out a few feet and I'm setting up cans and bottles and everything. I turn around, there's 30 mob guys with guns
Face pointing at you.
looking at me.
Right.
I turned around, I said, oh my gosh.
Right. Well, we better not mention any names right now.
No
because-
names. No
yeah,
names.
no names. No names.
No names.
Right.
No.
All right. So then you transition eventually. I guess you start your own firm, or
Yeah, so 3 years and change after that, I went off on my own. And as a result of being able to develop my own practice while I was working for Miles, because he was so busy on that 2-year case that I was handling a lot of his overflow. My name was getting out there very quickly, and my experience was happening very, very quickly as well. So I go out on my own, and word was spreading through the Passaic County Jail that I was the new up-and-coming guy.
nice.
And as a result, business was coming hard and fast. It was great.
Right. And I love when your name gets out in the jail, they'll just spread it like wildfire. Next thing you know, you're getting their phones ringing off the hook.
That's the best place for a reference.
Right.
You know.
Right. I always said if I got arrested, at least let me take in cards with me.
Yes. Right.
But so, we have this tradition in this on this podcast. Guy and I have been talking about our crazy ass cases, and I don't know if you have any other plan, Guy, how to have him talk to us, but I sure would love to hear about any of your crazy ass cases.
So thank you for that. And really, one of my craziest cases was one of my first cases out of my own. Being out of my own, it was President's Day weekend, and it was the Monday, President's Day, and I wasn't looking for a holiday. I was looking for work and trying to just do my thing and get my office together. And the phone rang that day on President's Day, and it was the Hail Mary murder case. Father of a 14-year-old kid calls me and says, we were given your name. My son's been locked up. They're about to interrogate him. Can you please get down to the police station immediately? And this was, they called it the Hail Mary murder case because eventually what you'll hear is that these kids started reciting the Hail Mary before they committed the murder.
Oh my God.
But anyway, it was a great case because the notoriety was amazing. It was 4 juveniles who were just unfortunately brainwashed by watching The Godfather over and over again. There was an adult that was their godfather, and he would just tell them who he wanted these kids to beat up, what he wanted to do, and these kids were doing whatever the Godfather was 18 years old,
Oh boy.
would tell them to do. And
They're amateur hitmen, huh?
yeah, well, I think that these 14-year-old kids really never thought anything was going to really become of it. But what happened, what happened was these kids were in a car, and the Godfather, the 18-year-old, had told them that he wanted this kid dead, and for no good reason at all. And they didn't like him. It was a stupid thing.
Wow.
And it turned out, so all these kids were in the car together, and they start reciting the Hail Mary out of nowhere. And he was in the front passenger seat. My client was in the rear behind the driver, and they throw piano wire around this poor kid and strangle him out and kill him.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
And so I end up going down to the police station, luckily enough, before they started to be able to speak to this kid. And I was able to work with the police, the Clifton Police, Clifton, New Jersey, work with the police and work some sort of deal out because my kid was so freaked out. He didn't really think that this was going to happen, but he was part of it and culpable. So I was able to work with them to get him to cooperate against and tell his story, his true version of the story, and basically work the deal out even before he was charged.
Really?
They wrote a book on this case called Pray for Us Sinners.
Huh.
And it really details the whole progression leading up to it because the key for this kid was getting a deal worked out for him even before they were able to charge. I made sure he wasn't charged as an adult. I made sure that he had a solid deal where he would be released before he became too old. And the other interesting part about this case, unfortunately for him, was the deal was if he testified against the 18-year-old that they would lower the sentence after the cooperation was completed. At the end of the cooperation, the 18-year-old was convicted. He went to trial. He spoke, and he was convicted. And then, upon reduction of sentence application, the judge refused to reduce the sentence.
Wow. Wow.
Prosecutor's office even came and spoke out on behalf of my client. How can anybody and defense attorney respect the plea bargaining process if the pleas aren't going to be honored? And they didn't honor the reduction of sentence. It went all the way to the New Jersey Supreme Court. When you read the decision of the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court decision looks like they're going to go my way the entire way, and then in the last paragraph, they affirm.
Wow.
It's a crazy decision when you look at it because you think it's...
Well, you know, as you know, in the federal system, that's the case. You know, you can reach a plea agreement, but it's ultimately up to the judge. That's usually not the case, certainly in Florida, Guy. I mean,
I
9
know.
times out of 10 or 95 out of 100, maybe 99 out of 100, judge goes along, right?
Yeah, and if they don't go along, they tweak it just a little bit to where it's not really offensive. But do you remember, I know this was a long time ago, what did he get sentenced to? What were you expecting it to be reduced to?
So he got sentenced to, I believe it was 20 years as a juvenile, and it was going to be reduced to 10 upon completion of testimony.
Wow.
And the judge refused to reduce it.
Yeah, I mean, that's significant. You're not, yeah.
So he ended up serving 10 because, you know, you don't do the full amount of time. He ended up serving 10 instead of what it would have been a lot less.
Wow.
So the judge gave him no benefit for his testimony?
Zero benefit, which was unheard of. And the Passaic County Prosecutor's Office could not have been better at the time. They came and spoke on his behalf and said, this is totally thwarts the entire plea bargaining process if it can't be respected.
You know, I talked in a previous episode about a boy who was sentenced for a drive-by shooting. I didn't represent him, but then from jail, in prison, he got a draconian sentence. I forget what it was, 50 years or something. He was about 15 years old. And then from jail, he wrote his own appeal and won. And I took it over at that point. And I found out that the prosecutor in that case was arguing for a very low sentence, and because there were a lot of factors and so forth that warranted a low sentence, and the judge just, you know, blasted him and launched him to prison for the rest of his life, essentially. And as we learned in my case, it turned out that judge was suffering from some type of serious illness and had some real personal issues going on the day of his sentencing. And so you always wonder, you know, when you have a prosecutor, you know, standing up for the defense, what's going through a judge's mind? But it shows you the power of the black robe.
The words that were used by the prosecutor at the resentences was, "We implore you."
Wow.
They used the word implore.
Right.
It was in all the transcripts.
Yeah.
To say that we implore you to grant this reduction.
Right, and let's not mislead our listeners. The government never does that.
Right.
They never stand up for the defendant. It's one in a gazillion.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's a shame. Wow. Were you at all involved with the other? I think you said there were 4 defendants. Did they all get really long sentences as well, or
They all got the same sentence.
they all got the same?
They all got the same denial of reduction,
Wow.
and all got out around the same time.
How about the Godfather?
He got 30,
30.
which is the maximum on a first-degree offense in New Jersey. So he got 30 with no parole.
Yeah. As we sit here today, they're all out. Certainly the Godfather, they're all out. Probably.
The 30 is probably out right about
now, right? Yeah. Amazing. Well, I'm going to go look at that book. I've never read it before.
Pray for Us Sinners. It's a great story. It was written by I think his name is the guy from the Star Ledger in New Jersey. I think his last name was Rudolph.
If they make it into a movie, who do you want to play you? George Clooney, or what are you thinking?
That'll work.
Okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Oh, I think with the hair,
Hey.
and I'm so envious that your hair, both you and Guy are like the kings of great hair.
I thought I had great hair till I met Andy.
Richard Gere should play you.
There you go. All right. What else? You have some other? I see you have some notes there.
I have some other crazy ass cases.
Well, one was where I represented a Nigerian drug kingpin.
Oh, you've told me about this.
And he was arrested along with his entire family for smuggling heroin into the country. And everybody was kind of caught red-handed, whether they were the drug smugglers, the condom swallowers with the drugs, anybody that came into the airport. I think they came in from Spain somewhere.
And people who may not understand when you said the condom swallowers, people actually traffic drugs that way into the country where they swallow it, they get through customs, and they get to the States, and they actually go to the bathroom, and the bags come out. The huge risk, though, is sometimes while someone's on a flight flying to the U.S., the bag actually pops and they overdose and die.
Yeah, I actually had a case like that.
It's horrible.
They tend to be very nervous also when they're
Yeah.
coming, when they're holding the drugs that way also, so they look pretty suspicious to custom
Yeah, they're
agents.
often sweating and nervous.
Yeah,
Sure.
so the whole family gets arrested, and they agree to cooperate against my client, who's the kingpin. And I said to him, we need to work a deal out here because your entire family's going to stand up at trial and just point the finger at you. And when I say entire family, there are about 6 or 7 people that got arrested as part of this conspiracy. He says, no, I hear you're great. We'll go to trial. We'll be fine because I didn't touch the drugs was his idea. And, I think he thought maybe they would fold also when
Right.
it came down to it. So sure enough, I had a 5-year offer for this guy.
That's a good deal, I would think.
Great deal. For
Yeah.
first,
He was the mastermind.
the
of it?
mastermind, the kingpin
Yeah.
is the expression, right? With
Yeah.
the federal guidelines and everything. He was the kingpin. And we go to trial. He doesn't want his 5 years. I place on the record that he's got a 5-year offer and he's facing a lot more. And sure enough, the trial goes on and we do the best we can, but all the fingers are being pointed by every defendant. He taught me this. He taught me this. I didn't know how to do anything unless he showed me what to do and where to get it and how to do it and timing and flights and everything. And so, of course, found guilty. And we go back and the case is over, awaiting sentence. And all of a sudden, the Clifton police officers, I had represented a lot of Clifton police officers, somehow got word through the DEA that they had heard this guy on the phone, and he wanted me dead.
He wanted you
He
dead.
wanted me dead.
Oh,
He
you and Marc have that in common.
He wanted me dead. I guess the 5-year deal wasn't good enough. Now he's facing 10 to 20, and at this point, so they approach me and they say, you need to start carrying a gun. And this was so long ago, before 9/11. There's no metal detectors walking into courtroom. I don't own a gun. I never shot a gun my whole life, but they tell me I need to start carrying a gun because this is a serious threat based on what they heard. They knew where I lived. They said they'd seen my daughter on the front lawn and things like that.
You're going to have to listen. I think it was episode 14. Marc was a prosecutor in New York, a DA, and something similar happened in the case, and the DA called him into his office, opened a drawer, and handed him a gun. He had no idea what.
Handed me the carry permit.
Oh, the carry permit, yeah.
So in New Jersey, it was very hard.
Right, it's really still very
Especially where I
hard.
lived in Morris County at the time, it was very hard to get a carry permit. It still is. Well, it's a little easier now, but it was impossible then. Even if you were one of these jewelers or bodyguards, they did not grant permits to carry.
Right.
But the DEA came to court, spoke on my behalf, and said these were real threats and I need to carry a gun. So I carried a gun and for quite some time. But what happened with this guy is not only did he get his 15 years, but the federal judge enhances him 2 years for threatening me.
Oh, yeah.
So now he's super upset.
Yeah. And now he's going to kill you twice.
He's going to kill me twice.
Yeah, oh my God.
He's super upset
Right.
that he got the extra time for threatening me. Like that should be okay in his world.
Yeah. Wait, what do you think was in his mindset as to why he declined a 5-year plea? Did he think people weren't going to show up and testify against him, or?
They were family. His sister was one of the witnesses at the time.
Right.
Maybe he thought that he had people behind the scenes that he could get to these witnesses to get them not to testify, even though they had agreed to testify already. I don't know, but a 5-year deal for what he was facing was a great deal.
Yeah, because Marc and I had a client like this. It was a very long trial that we did together. It was in the pain pill clinic industry, pain pill mills, and he had a partner, and we had a really good deal worked out for him. And he said, "There's no way his partner's going to testify against them. They're defending this together. They're all on the same page. They're like brothers." Over and over, and Marc and I would look him in the eye and say, he's going to turn on you. He's going to turn on you. No, 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 no. We're going to trial. He's not going to turn on me. And sure enough, we walk in for trial. And who's sitting at the prosecutor's table? His partner. So he was gambling on that too. And
I think the judge offered him 10 years right at the moment of trial, and he said no, and he wound up getting 35.
You're right. Yeah. So always I'm curious as to what's going through a defendant's mind. You know, some people just think they'll always win. You know,
It's an amazing mindset when they really are, the facts are that strong against them and they just are in total denial.
You know,
But it happens all the time.
yeah.
your story it reminds me how, and I'm sure you've been asked, and Guy, I know you've been asked. I've always been asked, well, do you get worried about representing these people that maybe they'll come after you? But that's in truth pretty rare, if ever.
So
So
all the organized crime cases that I did, I never felt that way. I
Right.
mean,
right,
they live by a code, and
right.
most criminal defendants that I've represented have treated me with respect and live by that criminal code. As weird as that is to say,
Yeah, it is. But it's true. It really is. And I felt like as long as they see that you're working really hard for them and doing the best you can, they honor that code. You know?
but it seems to be that there are certain cultures that honor it less,
Yes. Or that don't have a code at all.
that don't have a code at all. Exactly.
Yeah. I don't know if I ever shared this on the podcast. I can't remember because we've done so many of them now. It's exciting. But I was representing a individual who was a member of an organized crime family. And I was single at the time, living in a gated country club community. And when I say gated, I mean the security was really, really intense. They had guys, all the entrances to the community. They had roving, officers in cars. They even had dogs. It was major security. And one night, it's like 10 o'clock at night. My doorbell rings, and I open it up, and there's a 6 foot tall, beautiful blonde, gorgeous, gorgeous woman standing there. And let's call my client. We'll call them Smith. They said, hello, Mr. Fronstin. Mr. Smith sent me to take care of you tonight. And I'm looking out the door. I'm like, well, where's security? Like, how did she get through all these levels of security at 10 o'clock at night and get to my door? And I thought quickly, and I knew with the organized crime, I didn't want to say yes, and then take it to a whole nother level where I'm part of the family now, right? So I said, oh, I have a date inside tonight. Tell the Smiths, thank you, Mr. Smith, thank you very much. So, and then she went on her way. And no lie, this happened 2 more times with 2 different women from the Mr. Smith. 10 o'clock at night, about a month later, another gorgeous blonde shows up at my door, somehow got past through security, and then a 3rd time. Finally, I told Mr. Smith, no, I'm seeing someone pretty regularly, so thank you, but no thank you.
Well, that's the opposite of a death threat, right?
Yeah, right. I was afraid if I rejected a 4th time, that I would get the death threat. But, oh, you know what? We just blew through more than half the episode. So Ben, are you there? You're going to get us a commercial break?
We got a commercial break. Here we go.
Thanks. You're Free to Go is sponsored by Lang Realty, South Florida's premier residential real estate broker. Whether you're buying, selling, or renting a home or condo, Lang's experienced realtors are standing by ready to help you. Contact one of Lang's top realtors today at 561-703-2427. All right, we're back, you guys. And during our break, I had a little talk with Andy in here, and he says he has another case or 2 to share with us. I'm enjoying it because usually Marc and I are the ones sharing our cases. It's kind of nice to be with one of my buddies and listening to you as you went through the trenches on your cases. So I'm kind of enjoying it. I wish I had some popcorn here and a beer.
So one of my prouder moments, which is when you hear the story, it's a little strange of a word, but it was a proud moment when one of my family guys, whose father was a real family guy, came to me and was discussing whether or not he should be made.
Interesting.
And I did my best to talk him out of it because he was actually kind of involved in that world without being made. And once you're made,
By the way, can we just in case there are any listeners who don't really understand what that term means?
I was about to ask.
Yeah, I could see Ben's face. He's like, what's he talking about?
so made is what you've seen on television is, once you're part of the family, you're part of the family, and the family comes first. And his dad was part of the family.
Official member?
Excuse me?
Become an official member, right?
Become an official member.
Is it just Hollywood where you have to kill someone to become a member? Is there like a pledging thing you have to do?
There's a pledge. There's a pledge. I don't know about the killing factor, but
Right.
that's not really true. But the pledge was there. His dad was a member, and his dad was trying to get him in, and he had a really good business of lending people money without being a family guy. And they kind of let him operate without being a family guy. And it was his turn to become a family guy. And he came to me, we had a serious conversation about it, and I convinced him not to do it. And he respected our conversation to the point where he went to his family and said that he was going to pass. And it didn't go over well, and it was difficult for him to deal with that. You could imagine on so many levels.
Right.
So right after this happens, and we were very close. He was always getting in trouble, and I was there for him quite often.
Right. He was an annuity.
He was an annuity.
Yeah.
So what happens is we have this conversation, and within like a week of us having this conversation, he's pulling into his garage in Hackensack, and there's a guy waiting for him and shoots him in the head.
Oh, boy.
And it was so sad and so upsetting. And it turns out that we really don't know to this day who this guy was, but the guy that shot him had gotten out of jail the day before and was not part of the family or any of that associated in that world. But shot him in the head, ran. It was a televised at some point chase because it happened on the George Washington Bridge. They had pulled the mother and her daughter out of the car. He tried to get in the car to continue to escape from law enforcement. But the idea this guy was out of jail for one day and went and found my guy.
And there was no robbery?
No, he was there waiting for him. He knew where he lived. He was there. He shot him in the head and left.
Was it someone he had lent money to, or
he must have upset him
Yeah,
somewhere along the line.
right.
The fact that the day after he got out of jail, the first thing he
That's
did
right.
was go shoot him in the head, knew where he lived, everything,
Wow.
and then was ready to go back to jail for the rest of his life over it. So
Wow.
we never got that story, but it was just a shame because he was really,
trying to do the right thing? It sounds like.
to some extent,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
trying to do the right thing, and it was sad, very
Right.
sad.
Wow.
So even
You
though
all remember the scene from Goodfellas where Joe Pesci, playing Tommy, is about to be made, and he goes into to the room and he's killed. Do you remember that
Yes.
scene?
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
What it reminds me of. Wow.
he hadn't. You'd said he hadn't been made by the family. Chose not to. I wonder, did the family
No, he wasn't anything to do with the family.
but did they step up and track this guy down, or do you know if they got involved?
Well, he went to jail that day. Within hours of
They caught him.
shooting him in the head, they got him on the George Washington Bridge. From Hackensack, that's pretty close
Yeah.
an area. So, yeah,
So sad.
yeah.
Wow.
So it's an interesting, weird situation.
Right. Yeah.
But I had a question for both of you. I mean, you get this question all the time from friends and families. How do you represent these people? And
Right.
I don't want to get into the constitutional basis and innocent until proven guilty. And if we didn't do this, police officers would be arresting people all the time, kind of thing. But I was curious with the two of you and your experience. Are there cases that you have not taken or chosen not to taken, not because of money, they didn't have the money, obviously, and things like that, but for whatever reason that were pretty serious cases, could have been profile cases that you decided not to take,
Right.
and why?
Yeah. I'll
Well,
answer.
for me,
Go ahead, Mark.
child molestation and rape, I wouldn't. I don't feel comfortable handling those cases. I don't look down on anybody who does. It's just for me personally, and I don't think I would be interested in handling a case of terrorism or any kind of national security threat. But absent that, no.
So it's interesting you say that because those are my two also. Terrorism really didn't exist so much until more recently, but once I had a daughter and I actually I had to represent a child molester once when I was working for somebody, when I worked for Miles, when I first became an attorney. And that's where I really learned what an illness that is.
Yeah.
These aren't necessarily deviants. They're people that are ill and, no different than alcoholism and things like that.
Right.
And I learned that only because I went to visit somebody who said, you need to help me. I'm getting out of jail in a month from now, and my urges are so strong, I know I'm not going to be able to help myself once I get out.
Wow, that is very brave of him to own up to that.
Yeah.
That's really
But it
important.
opened my eyes into that whole world. And, once I was an attorney on my own, just because of all that comes with that baggage, that's kind of like where I was at also, Mark. So.
So
How about you, Guy?
I'm a case by case. I'll analyze the case. There could be at a child, abuse case, and when I really looked at it, I saw that the child had been very abusive in the house. It had been very volatile. The parents were going above and beyond to do everything they could. And by the way, my client wound up being a Harvard Law graduate, very highly esteemed attorney in the community. And he then got, one day, their son was really out of control. He punched him in the nose, and he called he called the police on this. The son gets taken away in the police car, and they say, well, he says, why aren't you arresting my dad? Like, why would we arrest your dad? Well, he punched me in the nose the other day. It was bleeding. The week earlier, he, pulled my hands behind my back and twisted me around and this and that. And so they went to the office to talk to the father, who's, again, a Harvard Law grad, said, hey, we just need to close this case out. Your son said these things the other day. Is it true? Is it not true? And he laid it all out for them, and they arrested him for child abuse. And we were able to document that he was really trying. His son had really been out of control for a while, and they were doing everything could to help this kid with therapy and so forth. So I'll look at those types of cases, and if I feel that emotionally I'll be conflicted. Morally, I'll be conflicted. I won't be able to do the best job for the client.
Right.
Then I'll decline the case. But I also feel like I take the responsibility of being a criminal defense lawyer very seriously, defending the Constitution, like you mentioned. Those arguments are there, and I think about the emergency room physician who, when they wheel someone in who needs emergency surgery, and he finds out that guy just shot 2 officers and killed one of them, you still have to operate and do the best you can on that particular, patient at the time. So I try to handle the cases. But if I do feel I have a moral or ethical conflict and won't be able to do a good job, I won't take it, of course. Oh, I got to share. Oh, you have a thought, and then I'll share mine. I see you.
Yeah, the other answer I give people when they say, how do you do this and represent these people? For the most part, I've had very few innocent people in my career.
Right. We're all innocent in here. Shawshank Redemption. The little Shawshank Redemption.
Very few innocent clients.
Right.
And that just makes it it's harder because you don't have the same set of facts. Also, I also find representing law enforcement, I represented a lot of police officers, especially in the town where my office was. And that pressure comes, with a lot of weight also because, these guys, have maybe done something wrong, but there's so much at stake. And the idea of some of them going to jail is very hard and difficult. And,
right. And sometimes they did some wrong, but they're not guilty of what they're accused of, meaning that, maybe they did count 1, but the government stacks 10 other counts against them, for overreaching and so forth on the government's part, which we see all the time. But I was going to say, too, I loved your question. It reminded me of something. I was asked, I do a lot of public speaking, and there was a rabbi of a temple with well over 1,000 members. It's a big temple, and they have a speaker series. And for some reason, he thought it would be cool to bring me in, and he published it, in all their newsletters and everything, that my topic was going to be how you would defend the Nazi war criminals at the Nuremberg trials. He's like defending the Nazi war criminals at the Nuremberg trials from the perspective of a high-end criminal defense lawyer. And it was everyone knew, and the room had over 400 people, it was packed. And I start by saying, I don't condone this, it's abhorrent to me, but as a criminal defense lawyer and I'm being asked to speak, what would I present if I were defending them? And I start, simple things like they were all, if you know that the history of the Nuremberg trials, the defendants were sitting in a glass box, like a cage of a glass. And I said, just for me as a defense lawyer, the optics of that looked guilty, and I would have argued to the judge, they should be able to sit next to their attorney in a nice outfit, just like their attorney's wearing, and not in a box where for 3 months people are looking them in the cage.
In an orange jumpsuit.
Right. So, but then, within like 3-4 minutes of my presentation, someone in the audience yells out that this is horrific. What are you doing here? And it happened like 3 or 4 more times within the first 15, 20 minutes of my speech that the rabbi eventually got up on the stage and said, hey, everybody, we publicized that this was going to be a very unique perspective on how you defend these people. And I think Guy's doing a very sensitive and thoughtful job of explaining both sides of it to you.
So it didn't turn out to be a good marketing tool.
It was definitely not.
Well, Guy was wearing a Nazi armband.
Yeah, that was probably not a good idea, I guess, in hindsight. Yeah. But you're right. We always get that question.
That is a fascinating, that's a fascinating thing that you went through, because that's really making the stakes as high as they can be, and, but of course, the real answer to that is you would have never done that, even though that might be the Mount Everest of all challenges. And sometimes people do it because it's the Mount Everest of challenges for a defense attorney. I think, there are limits to what we will agree to do. And part of it is, as you said, if you don't feel that you can really do the job, it's not fair to the individual, to the client.
Yeah.
You've got moral obligations or objections, or just don't feel comfortable with the client. I mean, the question we should ask our guest is, have you ever had people come to you that, you listen, they're willing to pay you, the case sounds interesting, but you just can't work with that person and you just don't want to represent that person?
The only time that happened was in the situation of, dealing with the child molesters. That happened a couple times. The question I wanted to ask both of you after a little misdirection is, have you ever had a judge? I've had this a couple times, bad situations where a judge on a Friday squeezed the jury real bad and you got a bad verdict as a result of the judge, okay, you can't go home and all this kind of stuff unless we get a verdict.
Right. And there's studies out there that show that juries tend to come in with that verdict right at 5 o'clock.
Compromise verdict.
Yeah, on a Friday.
They don't realize the ramifications of finding somebody guilty of something less still means possibly going to jail.
Right. And we're not allowed to discuss that in the trial, that, hey, if you find him guilty, what the consequence is going to be. Marc, how about you? Have you seen that?
Well, most of my cases are in federal court and there aren't lesser included offenses. And, but yes, that has happened. And the problem is juries don't understand that just finding them guilty on one count as opposed to all the counts may not make any difference in terms of the sentence, especially in federal court.
Yeah, they don't understand it at all.
Yeah, and you're not allowed to explain that. In fact, the interesting thing is, you're never allowed to explain what the potential sentence is, but there are 2 exceptions to that. One is when you have a co-defendant who's testifying and they've got to deal with the government, you can explore on cross-examination what they were facing for the same offense your client's on, and so the jury gets it then. And the second is in murder cases. In murder cases, juries know that the sentence is going to be a very serious sentence, usually either life or if it's a death penalty case, potential for that, which they have to vote on. So, but otherwise, it is a problem. So I've had cases. I had one case, I remember, 44 counts, 43 not guilties in a row, and we're about to go home and the last count is guilty.
Right. Well, that's what I alluded to earlier with something Andy said when I said, maybe they're guilty of count 1, but they stack all these counts and they're overreaching and overzealous and hit you with 10 counts because the government's hoping at least you'll be found guilty on one of them and they can get punished just as badly for one as if they get all 10 or 5 or 6 or 7.
So one last client story for you is that one of my few innocent clients was the victim of that, where he was charged with rape and kidnapping, first-degree rape, first-degree kidnapping, but it was a consensual defense, that he knew the girl's boyfriend found out, and she cried rape because she was just trying to prevent herself from getting in trouble with him. Mm-hmm. So she did a horrible job on the stand, and he was from Italy, didn't speak a lot of English, and was very nervous through the whole process. He just didn't understand the process very well. And we did a really good job discrediting her, and I thought we were going to win the case totally. Friday comes, jury's charged, and the judge is squeezing this jury for a verdict badly. And it turned out that the jury comes back with a compromised verdict of finding him not guilty of kidnapping in the first degree, which is taking somebody against their will and releasing them and harming them. But yet the jury found him guilty of taking her against her will and releasing her unharmed.
Right.
Found him not guilty of the rape.
Okay. Yeah.
So not guilty of rape, not guilty of taking her against her will and releasing her harmed, but yet compromising the verdict of you took her and you released her unharmed.
Harmed. Wow.
Which is a total compromise.
Doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Isn't it an inconsistent verdict?
So what happens is while the jury was deliberating, after he saw all these questions being asked and everything, they called the case in to accept the verdict, and my client is not there. And we're standing around, where is he, where is he? And it was a beautiful sunny day in the Hackensack Courthouse, and that's the approach line for the Newark Airport, actually. You can see the planes going out the window. And the judge said, "Where is your client?" And I said, "Judge, I think he's on one of those planes right now." He scared the hell out of him.
Right.
And I think he is on one of those planes back to Italy.
Well,
And thankfully he did go, because in New Jersey, that second-degree kidnapping charge would have given him 7 to 10 years.
wow.
And he was not guilty.
Right. Right.
He was not guilty.
Yeah.
Right now, he's what, a judge in Italy, or what is he doing?
His family is very careful how they communicate with me over the phone, but he's doing very well.
Good.
And
Built a nice life.
He thankfully has a good life, which he deserved, because it would have been a horrific result. And he was one of my few innocent clients too.
Right. Well, I always say it's the innocent clients that give me the gray hair. You know, there's so much pressure on us. If someone committed the crime, we still fight really hard for them and do the best we can to get them a great verdict. But at the end of the day, it's going to play out the way it's going to play out. And but you know, the innocent clients, it's very stressful for.
Guy, based on your hair color, I think you must have had a lot of innocent.
I sure did. Yeah, a lot. It used to be salt and pepper, not so much anymore, but. Now it's all salt, no pepper.
Seasoned veteran.
Yeah. Well, I got gray really young, by the way. So I was still a prosecutor in my mid to late 20s when I got gray. And I used to tell people jokingly that I colored my hair gray so the juries would think I was more seasoned.
Oh, nice.
You're right. There's something to that.
Very nice.
Yeah. Well, this has been another great episode. I think, you know, now that you get the kind of the context of this, you know, what we're all about, you're free to go. You know, keep thinking of more cases, and you'll come back as a regular
Love
guest.
to have you back.
I would love to come back. This was a lot of fun.
Just keep them. You know, Mark and I, since we've been talking about this for about a year plus now, we keep a log every time you'll be at dinner. I guarantee you, with some friends, they'll remind you. Somebody will come up, remind you of a case. Take out your phone, write it down. That's what we do. I literally have 250 cases or more, like more than that. And Mark has the same, you know, and it's just, and so we're going to be going on with this podcast for years. We're never going to run out of material.
Well, it's been very successful, so congratulations to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been a wonderful, excellent guest, and we really appreciate it. And ladies and gentlemen, until the next, do we have one more commercial?
Oh, well, yeah, but we'll do it right after the, after we sign off, I think, okay?
Sign off the usual way,
Yep.
ladies and gentlemen, until the next time.
You're free to go. Down Low Investigations is a sponsor of You're Free to Go. Behind every great criminal defense attorney is a great private investigator. That's why Mark and I use Down Low to investigate cases all over the country. Down Low can help you too, whether you're running a background check on an employee or running a background check on a blind date, or let's say you need someone followed or some other type of investigative work conducted. Down Low is the way to go. Call Download Investigations at 561-843-1806. Everything expressed and discussed in this episode are the opinions and experiences of attorneys Guy Fronstin and Marc Nurik and their guests. All ethical rules are complied with. Attorney-client privilege and confidential information is not shared or released during these episodes, and names, dates, locations, and other identifying information may be changed to protect confidentiality. Topics are embellished, and none of the statements made constitute legal advice and should not be considered or relied on as such.